Buenos días, les rogamos a todos tomar su lugar, por favor. Vamos a iniciar la conferencia magistral.
A ver, ¿mejor ahora? Entonces, muy buenos días, les doy la más calurosa bienvenida a todas, todos, todes. Es un verdadero privilegio para mí estar aquí con la doctora Leslie Kern. So, Leslie, welcome to Mexico. I'm really excited about having you here, and I just wanted, as a matter of introduction, refer a couple of stories. And one of them was how I came across your book, and this happened after I got invited to give a conference in Edinburgh with students in Scotland. And after that, when we were having a drink, we were just, I was asking the young people there, I was asking the students, what kind of issues were really close to their hearts? What kind of issues were relevant? And I got mentioned that it was extremely important for young women to live in feminist cities. So, as they told me, many of them were doing some activism work over there. So I got really inspired. You know, when young people speaks, we have to listen. And then the second chapter happens when just last year, actually it was January this year, Fernanda. January this year, Fernanda Lonardoni, this amazing woman, took office as the representative of UN-Habitat in Mexico. And we decided, we started dreaming and talking about what could be an ideal project to pursue this year. So dreams come true. As Jimena was mentioning just now, when we get together, because this conference we have today is basically the result of joint work of academia, embassies, philanthropy, many of my colleagues here in the different ministries in Mexico, and we believe that this was a relevant conversation. So without further ado, welcome to Mexico, and please, Dr. Kern, the floor is yours.
Muchas gracias a todos. Gracias por invitarme a este evento muy especial. Voy a hablar en inglés, pero necesito practicar mi español un poco hoy. Si quieren hablar conmigo luego, podemos charlar en español o inglés. Si español, más despacio. Bueno, vámonos. I've been a city lover for as long as I can remember. Toronto, my hometown, gave me my first taste of freedom as a teenager and a young adult, stomping around the streets in my big black boots in the 1990s. I felt at home, like I belonged. It wasn't until I had my daughter and made the mistake of trying to take the stroller on a moderately busy city bus that I had the thought, maybe the city doesn't love me back. It was another 20 years before Feminist City, the book, came out, after I had a chance to try to make sense of all the ways that the city had seemed to fail me and so many other women. Despite these failures, envisioning a feminist city doesn't mean tearing everything down. But I do think it requires a major shift in our priorities and values. Once we make this shift, though, endless ways of improving our cities begin to seem possible. When I wrote Feminist City, my aim was to introduce the idea of a feminist perspective on space and cities to a wide audience. I wanted people to consider the words of feminist geographer Jane Dark. She says, "Our cities are patriarchy written in stone, brick, glass, and concrete." I also wanted to make sure that people took seriously the idea, going too fast. I wanted people to take seriously the question, is the bus schedule sexist? Spoiler alert, yes, it often is. So it's been wonderful to find audiences who want to grapple with these ideas together with me and so many others. And it seems that right now there is an appetite, a hunger for real, tangible, practical interventions that can make a difference. So I see my contribution here as putting forward some values and principles around which we can start to make these changes. And these principles can inform data gathering, best practices, placemaking, and policymaking. I'm sorry, my clicker is going too fast for me. So my objective is to propose a set of feminist principles to guide the transformation of our cities into more sustainable, equitable, safer, and caring places. So what are we dealing with as we try to imagine a feminist city? As you know, we have a very male-dominated urban design, engineering, planning, development, construction, and architecture industries. Certain structures, norms, and practices of traditional urbanism reproduce gender inequalities, for example. We know that the male body is taken as a standard in urban design. Cities prioritize a typical male pattern of movement, and there are gendered assumptions about home and work, public and private, and more that saturate our cities. There are still relatively few cities that are set up to incorporate gender concerns, although this number is growing. The image on this slide of a book called Making Space, this came out in the 1980s from the Matrix Collective in the United Kingdom. But even though this book is many decades old now, the issues that women and caregivers face in cities transform our designs for housing in small communities, which can really revolutionize the way that care work is done. This is a picture from Vancouver, British Columbia in Canada of a co-housing community called Windsong, where so many families live together in one sort of co-housing community that many of the care needs of a single family are now shared amongst many. So let me move to my second principle, and that is starting from the body. The body has often also seemed like an afterthought in urban design or something to be controlled and feared. It seems obvious to say we all have bodies, but how many times have you come into a space in the city and thought, wow, it's like nobody considered that actual human beings would need to be here? Or worse, we find hostile design, which is meant to exclude people from sitting or sleeping or even being present in urban spaces. And even beautiful new spaces designed in cities can go unused because there's no bathroom, or there's nowhere to sit, or there's no shade, or somewhere to access water. So it's very important to remember that we live the city in and through our bodies. Feminist theory has always paid attention to bodies, in part because discrimination against women has often been rooted in body differences. But we can all take on this way of thinking, recognizing that we all have shared needs as human beings with bodies, but also remembering that we have different experiences in our bodies and that we may have some different needs as well. So one of the ways that cities can promote inclusivity in a feminist perspective is to pay attention to the needs of different bodies within cities. And I think this goes a long way to signaling inclusion, where you have places to rest, You have a little seat in the corner of a toilet where a toddler could be placed while you're trying to use the bathroom yourself. We have family restrooms, or restrooms that are accessible for all genders, and many other things that we'll talk about today. But noticing bodies and caring for bodies is part of building a feminist city. Okay, my third principle is to think about bringing the margin to the center. So much city building has started with this idea of a typical user who is an adult man, but not elderly. He's cisgender, able-bodied, moving along by himself. Has paid employment, he has neurotypical, he's straight, and so on. And along with this very specific list, we have this idea that somehow he is the universal figure, that he represents everybody, when in fact, he is only a small percentage even of men in the city. So instead of representing the majority, this person really represents the minority. Whereas groups such as women, children, the elderly, disabled people, newcomers, neurodiverse people, poor people, and queer people have often been treated as niche users whose needs are exceptional and extra. But really taken together, this group, all of us, we are the majority. So borrowing from the writing of bell hooks, a feminist principle to keep in mind is moving the margin to the center. So when we're designing now for the needs of women, as many of our panelists spoke about before, you're actually designing for the majority, which includes men and many other groups as well. So we can see some examples around the world of switching this thinking and bringing the supposed minority to the center. So the concept of aging-friendly cities, for example, Singapore is a city like many others with a rapidly aging population that needs to think about ways to keep the city very accessible for elderly people, which includes a lot of designs in the transportation system. Here we see Braille on a handrail, so for someone who is using Braille to read rather than eyesight. And honestly, who doesn't want a more accessible urban environment with less stairs and barriers? All of us would benefit from that. And similarly, we're seeing the rise of child-friendly cities. Children are not a group who tend to have a voice in cities, and who are often kind of left out of how we think about the functions of cities. Bratislava, which is pictured here in Slovakia, we see here a streetscape that is temporarily designed around children. And one of the key principles here is to think about children's spaces as not just the playground in the park, but as including the streets and the sidewalks and other kinds of public areas. It's also very important to keep in mind with the child-friendly city to pay attention to girls so that we don't end up with parks that are just full of football pitches and skate parks, as much fun as those can be. So organizations like Make Space for Girls in the UK are also working to design with girls to create play and recreation spaces that feel safe and welcoming for them. Okay, moving on, rethinking safety. So important right now as we're thinking about the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. Too often, safety interventions in cities start and stop with more lighting, cameras, and policing. But there's little evidence that these things actually make women safer, and they don't tackle the kind of violence that most women face on a day-to-day basis, which is domestic violence in the home or from people that they know. So what if we started thinking about safety as something that is connected to wider, collective, state-supported care policies? In other words, safety from the top down. So my apologies for a very outdated meme, but what if I told you that care and safety are the same thing? So we are told that safety looks like more policing or tightened control of urban spaces. I apologize if the font is a little small there for you. And women, of course, are also told that in order to be safe, we have to adjust our own behavior, how we dress, where we go, what time of day we go out at, who we're with, and so on. But that's the tip of the iceberg. If we look below the iceberg, the things that would actually create safety would include things like affordable housing, free childcare, excellent health care and mental health support services, a universal basic income, which would be especially helpful for caregivers, vibrant mixed-use urban spaces, wide range of economic and educational opportunities. These are the kinds of things that would allow women to have the economic and social independence that would help to avoid or be able to leave situations of abuse and to simply have the autonomy and freedom to make the choices they want to make in their own lives. Okay, the final principle that I will wrap up with today is a reminder that if the process isn't feminist, the outcome won't be feminist either. Feminist urban interventions always insist on taking the lived experience of women and their everyday lives seriously. And this means really deeply engaging with women and girls and other marginalized people in our cities and in cities. And that safety really starts from the ground up. And in all of this, the process that we engage in must be feminist as well. So thank you so much for listening. Here you can see some of the ways to find and contact me through my website, LinkedIn, or on Instagram. And of course, my book, Feminicity, as well as Gentrification is Inevitable and Other Lies, both of which have Spanish translations from Ediciones Godot. So thank you so much for your attention, and I look forward to the exciting conversations we'll have today. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kern. It is incredible how things can change when we have the vision, when we have the political will, when we join forces. One of the things that impressed me most when I first read your book was there is this chapter about La Flaneuse. The young woman who wants to be adventurer, who wants to travel, who wants to explore the world. That was me when I was 14. I really wanted to just walk, discover the place. My first adventure ended very badly when I chose not to take the school bus back to my home, but to try walking. And it was really bad. Later on, as a 17-year-old student in Mexico, my body seemed to be, there all the time. You would be a victim of aggression at every level. And I finally decided I would never be La Flaneuse when, at about 22, I got sexually assaulted as I was traveling in Italy. Because men could travel freely, they can, hitchhike, whatever. That was not for us. As a young mother, same thing. You cannot even go to the toilet when you have a baby in your arms. It is not possible. And you cannot walk with a pram. But now, at this age, I'm very, very proud of being back in my hometown. I am a daily public transportation user. Now in Mexico City, we have these dedicated spaces for women. We have many, many improvements that are allowing me, and this is what I wanted to say. Today, I am La Flaneuse. I go and travel, I walk, I explore, and I really feel that I am owning my city again. So thank you for your inspiration. Thank you for this wonderful keynote. And Dr. Kern will be around during coffee breaks and all that. Thank you very, very much for your attention. And we move on now to the next panel. Thank you.
Thank you.
Agradecemos a Leslie Kern por su magnífica conferencia magistral. Ahora daremos paso a la mesa 1. Les rogamos estar en sus lugares, modificaremos el presidium. Ya le dije a... Ella mandó a coffee break, pero no estamos diciendo con la